Hi folks, it's Mr. Enriquez, and in today's video I'm going to talk about writing an introduction and conclusion. I'm going to answer two basic questions. How do you write a good introduction and how do you write a good conclusion? At the end of this video I have a bonus tip about how you can create your own basic thesis statement, so make sure that you stay till the end so that you know how to write a good thesis statement. For now, let's write our introduction. Let's get to it. So, when you're writing your introduction, you want to make sure that you follow a funnel shape, which is basically this, or as you might have seen on my thumbnail. Now you want to start general and end very specific, and you usually end with your thesis statement. Whatever you're writing, make sure that your introduction has a very good hook to catch the reader's attention, and a good video on how to write a good hook is linked up here. I mentioned that you start very general, but how general really depends on what you're writing and what your goal is, how formal your writing should be, and the type of thing that you're writing. When you're writing a problem solution essay, you might want to start with your problem and give the problem you're going to solve. And maybe you can link it to the reader and how the reader might encounter this problem in their own life. If you're doing something a bit more informal, you might want to ask a question or something that really catches the reader's thoughts. When you're writing an essay, you might want to give some background information in your introduction as well, some very brief ideas to create a context in which the thing that you're writing your essay about appears. And in some academic articles and research papers, your introduction also contains your research questions, and sometimes you need to elaborate a bit more on your research questions before you talk about your thesis statement. Now, in your essay, it's very important that you work towards your thesis statement, and a good thesis statement always leads to a good essay. Now, as I mentioned, at the end of this video, I'm going to give you the basic structure of a thesis statement, so make sure that you stay tuned. Now, the most important thing about writing an introduction is that you keep your introduction short. You don't want to give everything away, and you don't want to scare off your reader with a very elaborate introduction. And make sure that when you're writing your introduction, you have already written your entire essay, so that you know what will appear in your essay and that you know what you're working towards. For your conclusion, you follow the upside down funnel shape, and this means that you start very specific and end very general. Now, the way you do this and the exact form really depends on what you're writing. But most of the time, you always want to summarize or review the main points of your article. In an essay or article, you might want to state your major arguments, the major things you found, or the major ideas that you wrote in your essay. You also want to state the relevance of the things that you found. Why does it really matter, and why is it important what you've written down? In a review, you want to give your verdict. What do you think of the thing you've reviewed? You've looked at different points, you've looked at different aspects of the thing you're reviewing. What is your final conclusion? Is it any good? Is it worth reading? Would you recommend the thing that you're reviewing to the person who's reading your review? In your research paper, you definitely want to state your major findings. What did you find in your research? Then you also need to think about your implications or limitations. Are there things that you couldn't research because you had some particular aspects that you were looking at? Were there any faults that you missed out? You could also think about ideas for future research. What are other aspects that either your research found that are interesting to look at, or things that build upon your own research that might be very interesting for other researchers? Now, what's very important in a conclusion is that you don't include new ideas or new findings. Put new ideas and new findings at the appropriate spot in your body paragraphs. Don't add them in your conclusion. Now, one thing many students do is start their conclusion by saying in conclusion or in summary or to summarize or to conclude. And although those things are not really incorrect, they are very cliché. So you might want to avoid those things when you're writing your own conclusion. And now the thesis statement. Like I've said, the thesis statement is a summary of your article in one particular sentence. The aim of the thesis statement is give the reader an idea of what you're talking about. What are you trying to achieve with your essay, your article, or whatever you're writing? Now, not everything needs a thesis statement. Some things are rather informal or are just casual reading, and they don't need a thesis statement. But anything that has a thesis statement is very structured. So what is the basic structure of a thesis statement? Well, there are many things you can say about thesis statements and they appear in many forms, but I think if you need a place to start, what you could do is follow this structure. The aim of this X is to Y, Z. For an essay that describes the influence of language exposure on language proficiency, the thesis statement could be something like, the aim of this essay is to describe the influence of exposure on language proficiency. You can change the word describe to anything else, like analyze or research or review, whatever you think fits best. The final thing that's very important is that you always check your thesis statement when you're done writing your entire article or essay. Because sometimes you want to change your thesis statement because you kind of moved in a different direction while you were writing. Of course, planning your writing solved this problem, so if you want help with that, make sure that you check out my planning your writing video. But writing is dynamic and sometimes you change your mind about what you want to write about. So make sure that in the end, when you're done writing your conclusion and you've written your introduction, that you check your thesis statement to make sure that it still follows your article or essay. And that's basically it regarding the introduction and conclusion. If you found this useful, don't forget to give a thumbs up because that really helps in the algorithm finding this video. If you want to know more about my other videos, don't forget to subscribe because then you know when my next Writing Essentials video will be out. Thank you for watching and I'll see you in the next one.